Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses, or rather, good afternoon. I'm having a second crack at my show today after the first attempt at 10 o'clock rather than 11 o'clock ended in failure as I suffered from an totally unstable broadband connection. I've checked all the connections this end, so I'm guessing it was somewhere upstream from me. Nevertheless, we're having a second go at running the show. So if you are joining me for the first time at 3 o'clock, I'll just remind you that these shows normally go out live at 11. We are live today at 3 p.m, just 4 hours late. So what have we got in the show for you today? Well, we've got some news from London, which is getting the first e-moped rental trial next month. The Fonz' Triumph from the Cult Happy Days show went on auction and fetched £200,000. Motorcycles are confirmed as having free access to the forthcoming Lower Thames Crossing when it's built. We'll look at two new electric motorcycles, a Smart Monkey e-bike from LexMoto and a modern retro from Maeving, a UK startup. We'll ask how much, looking at a product from Givi this time. I'll go over Porsche's plans for e-fuel on the back of the last item last show about tailpipe emissions from e-fuels. And we'll finish off with today's better biking tip, which is about biking in the snow. We'll be asking if it's sensible or if it's even legal. So settle yourselves down for the next 30 odd minutes and join me, Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, for my 11s show just 4 hours late today. All right, okay, so don't forget, if you've got anything to say about any of these stories, I'm happy to read your comments. I'll try and get to them online if I possibly can. If I can't get to them online, I will get to them after the show. If you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer those as well. And any feedback, any suggestions for future shows, I will be happy to look at those as well. So, all right, good afternoon to you all. Paul says not 11's afternoon tea. Well, it could be. Yes, very much so. I've got my mug ready to go for later. So, right. So anyway, on with the late show. The mobility specialist Human Forest is planning to bring London in line with Barcelona, Madrid, and Paris, amongst other cities, with a scheme to hire out 28-mile-per-hour limited e-mopeds next month. Now, Human Forest has already launched an e-bike sharing scheme with 800 e-bikes up for grabs across 4 London boroughs. That launched back in September, and the company says that they saw users cycle almost 100,000 miles cumulatively in the company's first month of operation. Now, during the initial trial of the e-mopeds, 100 of these electric bikes will be available to rent, and that's from January next year. And the company plans to increase their fleet to 200 during the course of 2022. Access will be set via the same app that unlocks its e-bikes. Users will get 5 minutes free per day, which the cynic in me says will just about be long enough to unlock it, don your helmet, wheel it out of the bike park and put it back again. After which your journey gets charged at 20p a mile, which is £12 an hour, which actually for an electric moped, I suppose, isn't that unreasonable. You get a storage compartment which can hold up to 5.6 kilograms in weight. I'm not quite sure how they work out how much weight you can put in it, but hey ho. It's designed to facilitate, as they say, transport of small consumer items and business goods. So you're not going to get your week's shopping in there. It's not clear at the moment where these will be based, though Human Forest says they will be docked in existing dedicated moped parking spaces across London. Now, if that means the same bays, or rather the reserving space in existing bays that ordinary bikes are parked in, given the pressure on parking spaces for power two-wheelers in many parts of the capital, I can see a lot of unhappy commuters if they find their regular spots turn out to be full of rental bikes. It's not clear either where they will have to be returned to. Presumably, it's going to have to be an approved bay, because I would guess Human Forester don't want these things abandoned at random across London. Now, not surprisingly, whilst the company itself plays up the green credentials of the scheme, most cycling groups have already started to raise concern about the riders, who may or may not have entitlement to ride them, and may or may not have experience of riding in city centre traffic. The mopeds are restricted to 28 miles per hour, which in theory would make them eligible to anybody with a CBT and a provisional license. But the company says at the moment that the riders must be aged over 18. And although it says the provisional license is a requirement, it doesn't make any mention of CBT. Now, presumably it will be, or that provisional license wouldn't be valid. Each bike will come with 2 helmets as well, which will be stored in the bike, although presumably carrying a passenger would also mean that the rider needs a full motorcycle license. Now, once again, that's not made clear. So, given the almost total lack of policing of the roads in London, I do wonder about adding e-bikes like this, e-mopeds, to an already chaotic mix. And there certainly needs to be some clarification of the license requirements. My guess is that they will have to fall into line with current DFT rules on licenses. Now, presumably, license entitlement will be checked via the app, but I can imagine the case where someone with an appropriate license actually unlocks the bike for someone who doesn't have the necessary paperwork to ride it. It's apparently, and I say this as a sort of something I have heard, it's a common practice amongst some delivery riders who not only share a bike but also share an identity. Now, the second question is, what happens if the bike runs out of juice before you reach your destination? It's unlikely these bikes will have a particularly long range, but if they can manage 28 miles per hour, in theory, you could run out of battery, presumably in an hour or so. The pavements are already littered with abandoned rental bikes, and I can see these bikes getting dumped halfway through a journey. The third point is, I'll be interested to see how many of them are actually still around when the trial ends. Now, it's not just the risk of these bikes being involved in collisions or damaged by vandalism, which is a possibility, but there's almost certain to be a significant theft problem. Much has been made of the success of TfL's Santander-sponsored bikes, but in the 11 years since their introduction in 2010, the theft rate has been steadily going up. Now, one infamously appeared on social media in Jamaica earlier this year, and on several occasions I've seen one of these bikes being quite openly cycled around London after a very crude pink respray. Now, most of the missing bikes are only missing for a very short period and are tracked down, having been abandoned in the wrong places. But considerable numbers are disappearing. In 2020, 12,448 bikes went missing. And although they recovered 11,000 of those, 950 vanished for good. And between January and July this year, no less than 851 of the Santander bikes has gone permanently AWOL. And you have to ask yourself, how much more attractive would an electric moped be? So, okay, don't forget, if you want to watch this show, you can catch up with it at my YouTube channel, which is Survival Skills UK. It normally goes out at 11 on Wednesdays and Sundays. Today, it happens to be running several hours late due to technical problems this morning, but you can always catch up later on Facebook too. So do set yourself a reminder and try and catch me live on Sunday when I should be back at my regular slot of 11 o'clock. we have a photo to put up. Here it is. Let me just share it with you. There it is. That is the 1949 Triumph Trophy 500, a modified version thereof, ridden by Arthur Fonzarelli, who you may better know as the Fonz from the cult TV show Happy Days. Well, that particular machine went under the hammer at Bonhams, and in the auction, it sold for a rather staggering $231,562 US. It's one of 3 bikes that was actually built for the show. One story I missed back in the autumn is that the Motorcycle Action Group, MAG, have ensured that the forthcoming Lower Thames Crossing will be free to motorcycles, and the access will also be possible for motorcycles over 50cc and for riders on L plates, saving those riders long detours. Mopeds will not be allowed to use the crossing, however, because it will carry high-speed traffic on the access roads. So MAG representatives have secured meetings following conflicting comments about access and charges for this Lower Thames Crossing project, and they met officers from the DFT, and they were able to say that the charges will match those of the Dartford Crossing, which means that PTWs will be exempt from tolls. MAG later received written confirmation from the Lower Thames Crossing project that motorcycle access would allow riders on L plates. However, you will need to be aware that some of the road connections from what will be designated the A122 LTC will lead to a motorway, either the M2 at one end or the M25 at the other. And although these routes will be clearly signed, you will have to make sure that you follow the roads or the signs to the non-motorway route if you want to get off of it. MAG's Southeast Regional Rep, Stephen Mallet, he expressed pride in the efforts of MAG members to secure this formal confirmation. He said it's taken years of slog, and personally I'm delighted, not just for me, but also for the North Kent members that supported me. They attended consultation meetings and answered the repetitive surveys that appeared every few months. MAG has successfully campaigned for free river crossings on all our major estuaries, and LTC makes up the full set. So there we are. That's some good news, saving motorcyclists some money. And here's another way that you can save a little bit of cash. I reminded you of this the other day, but my gift voucher offer is now available. The vouchers are available from my coffee shop. There is a link which I'll just put up for you that you can follow to find out a little bit more about them. They are on sale now. They're on sale till the end of February. They are in a variety of values from £35 to £80. The good news for you, if you buy one and give it to somebody you know and love, is that they'll be worth more than the face value when they come to be redeemed. And you can also, of course, keep them for yourself. So the £35 one, for example, is worth £40 when you redeem it, which happens to be the price of an online coaching session. Or the £80 one will actually save you £20 because it's worth £100 against next year's training. So there's some fairly good savings there for you if you are looking to do some motorcycle training next year. They're available in my shop now at the link I've just posted on the comment stream. So pop over there and have a look and find out what's on offer from Survival Skills. Right, okay, next picky, what have we got here? Well, this is a photo, I have to admit, I pinched from online. It's the LexMoto Cypher, and it's quite a pretty little thing, I think. It was seen at the motorcycle show. I've got the wrong picture up here, get that out of the way. It's the first electric motorcycle to be part of the LexMoto range. LexMoto, you all know, are a UK distributor, and they certainly badge up and sell a Chinese range of motorcycles, and they're very successful. They've been operating in the top 10 sales for quite some considerable time, and they have a sort of a big grip on the smaller less expensive end of the motorcycle market. So this is their first electric motorcycle. It's a mini bike, monkey bike as they're sometimes called. The diminutive two-wheeler there has a 1500-watt electric motor. It's got a removable 1.9 kilowatt hour battery, which isn't very big, but should give it a range of around 40 miles tops. 28 mile per hour top speed means it's AM license category, a moped. It could be ridden therefore by a 16-year-old or even an older driver who passed their driving test for 2001 minus a CBT in that case. The bike comes with extended servicing intervals, we're told, although quite frankly with an electric motor and a belt drive, I'm wondering what there is to service sort of via brakes and tyres. But there's a 2-year parts and labour warranty and a 3-year warranty on the battery. Personally, I think it's got a shed load of entry level appeal for younger riders, and the quirky mini bike looks might just be the thing to sway a few more experienced motorcyclists to jump ship to electric power. Particularly if LexMoto can actually come up with a 125 equivalent bike with a sort of 60 odd mile per hour top speed, that could be very attractive indeed. The Cypher is eligible for the electric vehicle grant, which means 20% reduction on the recommended retail price, and that means it will cost the buyer a not unreasonable £2,299. Now, one review online I looked at described it as expensive, but frankly, the writer clearly hadn't looked at the price of other bikes in the moped category. Yes, there are cheaper bikes out there. LexMoto's own Hunter 50, which is a petrol engine bike, of course, a basic one will set you back just over £1,000, so you'd save £1,000 on this little electric monkey bike. But WK's petrol engined Colt 50, which is a similar monkey bike style, is actually £1,500, so getting closer to the price. And if you head for the top of the range Aprilia 50, again petrol engine machine, it'll empty your wallet to the tune of £3,000. So on to our second bike of the day. Take a look at this one. This is the first production model from a new British startup. It's hand-built in Coventry, and it's the Maeving RM1 e-bike. This retro-style machine is lightweight. It will tip the scales at just 98 kilograms, including the removable battery, and the full power model, I use the term power advisedly because it has a top speed of just 45 miles an hour, will set you back a fairly hefty £4,995, which actually makes that LexMoto look quite affordable, doesn't it, really? But for that cash, you get a bike which is capable of recharging one battery at least from a standard 13 amp power supply in 3.5 hours, and you get a range of about 40 miles on the single battery. There's actually a rather clever tray, which I hope I have another picture of. There we go, which carries the swappable batteries. They weigh just 10 kilos each. The bike can carry two, so that doubles the range up to 80 miles. The additional battery isn't cheap, however. It's £1,195 if you buy it separately, although you can save £200 if you buy it with the bike attached to it. There's also a less pricey 28 mile per hour version for moped riders. Well, the looks, I have to be honest, it's not a bike that particularly appeals to me. If you go back to the design there, it's that I don't know how long the mic has been muted. That's really, really, really annoying. If you think £5,000 is expensive for a motorcycle, how much are you prepared to pay for a bar of aluminium and a couple of brackets? Givi clearly hope that your wallet is much deeper than mine, and that's because they're hoping that you'll part with around £80 for their smart bar. Now, what is the smart bar? Well, basically, it's what they describe as an elegant aluminium tubular bar. Let me get a picture of it. Here we go. There it is, which allows a number of accessories to be mounted all at the same time. So it's useful if you've run out of space on the handlebars, or if you haven't got those kind of handlebars in the first place, actually, to bolt switches for grips, put GPS mounts, that kind of thing, foam mounts. Now it's clever in as much as that it's designed to be adjustable, and is designed to bolt to the top clamps where the handlebars mount. You can see that in the next photo. What it isn't, though, is particularly smart, because there's no power supply actually incorporated in that. It really is just a dumb lump of metal. And frankly, for a piece of a solid anodized aluminium, the price is just plain daft. Because the other thing to consider is that it's not actually supplied with the fitting kit you need. Yes, you get the bracket, but you need the stainless steel screws and the spacers um, on top of the 80 odd quid that Givi expect you to pay for that piece of metal. Now, quite frankly, how on earth it is that Givi can justify that kind of price tag for a lump of metal with a universal mount that doesn't even come with the necessary bolts to fit it to your bike is frankly beyond me. I just simply do not understand why any motorcyclist would actually pay 80 odd quid for that piece of metal unless they have really got money burning a hole in their pocket. Right, okay. So, all right. Mike says the Maeving looks like it's got a hub motor. Don't know. Didn't look at it that closely. Not sure what I think about that. It says, Mike, in the e-bike world, hub drive bikes are the lower end of the market. Downside would be wheel weight. Plus side is no chain, belt, or shaft. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have got a fairly large amount of unsprung weight swinging around on the end of the swinging arm. Does it really matter on a bike with a top speed of 45 miles per hour? Probably not. Nothing like as much as it would do if you're putting on 200 mile per hour super bike. So I think it's, to some extent, it's horses for courses here. After all, if you think about most scooters have the motor attached to the swinging arm, and you'll see it bouncing up and down with the suspension. Right, okay. Last time out, I was talking about tailpipe emissions from synthetic fuels, so-called e-fuel, and how when run in a standard petrol engine vehicle, the NOx emissions were predictably pretty much the same as when the same engine uses ordinary petrol derived from oil. That's the whole point of burning fuel. You are going to get tailpipe emissions. Now, NOx are a product of burning fuel, and it doesn't matter what the fuel is, even wood stoves produce NOx emissions. But the big pluses for e-fuels are these. The fuel could be carbon neutral. In other words, as much CO2 would be removed from the atmosphere to synthesize the fuel as would be put back by burning it. And that is a big concern, of course, for global warming at the moment. And that's the basis of the claim that e-fuels could be as clean as electric cars. Porsche claim the fuel would not require any modifications to a car. So it would be compatible with both current and older vehicles. And there is, of course, a significant older vehicle fleet around, including a number of classic vehicles which will need fuel to burn. And they're putting their cash where their mouth is. Back in September, the German sports car manufacturer confirmed that construction has actually already started on the plant specifically for the commercial production of synthetic fuels in Chile. The fuel produced is due to be trialled in 2022 in race cars. And the South American factory will actually exploit the windy environment to generate the power. Porsche says they could be producing 55 million litres of green synthetic fuel by 2024 and 10 times that amount 2 years later. Now, I'm not quite sure how that stacks up against the world consumption of petrol. I would imagine it's probably a drop in the ocean, but I'd have to go and look at the figures. Commenting on the plans anyway, Porsche boss Oliver Blume reaffirmed that electromobility remains a top priority for Porsche, but e-fuels for cars are a worthwhile complement to that, he said, as long as they're produced in parts of the world where there is a surplus of sustainable energy available. And that basically sidesteps the claims by the green energy think tank that I was talking about on Sunday, where they said that e-fuels were not a sustainable option because they would require a big investment in extra electricity generating capacity in Europe. In this case, there's actually no need for the electric plant to be based in Europe, but it can be put where there is cheaply available green energy, wind energy in this case, and the fuel is also transportable. Yes, you can fire electricity down a power cable, but there are voltage drops involved, so there's efficiency losses the further you transmit power. That's why there are power stations actually scattered up and down the UK. There is a grid connecting them, but there are sources of energy at intervals along that grid. So Bloom said there are an additional element on the road to decarbonisation. Their advantages lie in ease of application. E-fuels can be used in combustion engines and plug-in hybrids and can make use of the existing network of filling stations. By using them, we can make a further contribution towards protecting the climate. As a maker of high-performance, efficient engines, we have broad technical expertise. We know exactly what fuel characteristics our engines need in order to operate with minimal impact on the climate. Our involvement in the world's first commercial integrated e-fuels plant supports the development of integrated fuels of the future. And the NOx, well, with a bit of luck, an improved catalytic converter system could convert virtually all the toxic nitrogen monoxide to harmless or relatively harmless nitrogen dioxide. No, that's not right, is it? I'm getting my chemistry muddled up here. You have to convert it to nitrogen and oxygen. Yes, that's what a catalytic converter does. I'm muddling up my carbon monoxide and my carbon dioxide there. Right, okay, so anyway, on to the final piece for today. It's the better biking tip. We're halfway through December already. This year seems to have absolutely rushed by, and that means we are halfway through the first month of winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. We've already had a fairly substantial snowfall across parts of the UK, although it didn't reach London. I'm not sure what the odds are on a white Christmas, but we will almost certainly get more snow across the UK before the winter is out. So what do we do if we are on two wheels? Well, my best advice, and this is based quite frankly on rather too many years of earning a crust riding a motorcycle 12 months round, is that two wheels and snow don't mix. If you can, stay at home. If you can't stay at home, take the car. Now, bikes simply don't have enough grip. The worst conditions are actually snow on top of ice. There's the illusion of some traction thanks to the fresh snow, but beneath that there's the ice waiting to catch you out. Brake suddenly, as I did many years ago when a car driver saw me driving very slowly up the road, not that far from Alexandra Palace, and he pulled out in front of me. I hit the brakes, of course, and promptly locked the front up, and I was on my backside even before I had time to react. The front wheel just pushed the snow up in front of it and then skated along the ice underneath. It was fun and games actually picking the bike up. The only way I could do it, a lorry driver stopped to help me, was actually slide the bike on its side across the road until the wheels hit the curb, and then I could use the curb as a lever to get the bike upright again. As an aside, it's worth mentioning that in many Northern European countries, winter tyres are compulsory on cars. Now, in UK, that's not actually the case. They're not a legal requirement here, so very few people, unless you live in areas where you're liable to get extreme weather for a prolonged period, very few of us actually make the switch to a tyre capable of dealing with snow. I well remember being caught out in the car by a sudden unexpected snowfall when I lived in Canterbury, and we actually barely made it up the not very demanding hill out of the town centre with the tyres scrabbling for grip in the fast falling snow. So that's worth remembering if we're thinking of venturing out on two wheels in snowy conditions. Four wheels have the advantage that the car won't usually fall over, but it doesn't mean that the driver has actually much in the way of control over the vehicle. And it certainly doesn't mean that the driver has control over traction or steering. And of course, with all four brakes locked up, ABS won't work either. Now think about that and ask yourself, do you really want to be out on two wheels in the middle of a bunch of drivers who really don't understand the dynamics of what they're driving and the fact that the cars are barely under their control? Something else to watch out for, even if the roads are clear in your area, they may not be elsewhere. Now, temperature falls with altitude, so where you start in rain, that rain can rapidly turn to snow. That happened to me trying to get out of France. It was across the Alps. I was intending to take a pass. It was it was 1st of June, I think it was, early June. I was trying to take a pass across the Alps and failed miserably because I got about 3/4 of the way up and the snow started, and I was probably only a mile from the top. But at that point, the snow was falling fast, and it was getting seriously deep on the road. So I just turned around and went down, and had to take a long detour and take a tunnel to get where I wanted to go. So think about what's happening at altitude. You know, even in the UK, modest ranges of hills can have snow on the top. Kent, for example, North Downs at their highest are less than 200 metres along most of the range. 150 metres is a fairly average height for the North Downs, yet many of the hilltops are snowy when the valleys below them are just wet. So even modest rises can make a difference. The other thing to remember is that temperature falls as you get further away from the coast, and particularly from the southwest. So you could easily start a journey from somewhere like, I don't know, Devon or Somerset, and by the time you got to the Midlands, you could be running into fairly serious snowfall. So think about what's going on in the direction you're headed. Now, what do you do if you do get caught out in a blizzard? Now, it's happened to me a couple of times. I just spent a trial day working down at Cinque Ports on Romney Marsh. So this was the winter of 95, 96. It had been a lovely sunny day down there, cold, but a really nice day. Leaving the site, it was just starting to get dark, and in the sort of setting, the afterglow of the setting sun, I could see a band of dark clouds starting to spread across the northern horizon. I had a sort of a journey of about 20 miles. It used to take me about 40 minutes to do that journey tops, and I got about halfway, just about to Tenterden, actually, if you know the area, and the snow was starting to fall, and it was starting to fall quite hard by that point. It got difficult to see. Even through the snow, it was hard to see more than 30 or 40 meters. The snow was covering the road, and of course, as it comes down harder and harder, and it gets colder and colder, the snow starts to stick to the visor, so you can't actually see where you're going. Now, flipping the visor up isn't much of an option either, because you still can't see because of the snowflakes hitting you in the eye. So, excuse me, the combination of snow building up on the road, building up on the visor, and the fact it was rush hour and people were rushing home led me to make what I think was a sensible decision. I rode the bike up onto the pavement at a dropped curb, got it out of the way of the road itself, and spent an hour and a half or so in a bus station, or in a bus stop actually, sheltering from the snow. After about 90 minutes, the worst of the snow had actually stopped. Worst of the rush hour was over, And although something like 15 centimeters of snow had fallen, it was a really significant snowfall in a very short time. Um, I made it the rest of the way home without too much drama, but it did take me just over 3 hours to do what was normally that sort of a 30-40 minute ride. Interestingly, I had sports radials on the bike at the time, sport touring radials, and they worked okay. I wouldn't say they delivered a lot of grip, but they did get me up the hill, which I was a bit concerned about. But I have to say, next morning, when the commuter traffic had had time to pound the snow to ice, the bike stayed in the garage and actually stayed there for the next 2 weeks. I was snowed in, and the training school was actually snowed in too. What about snow tires? Well, believe it or not, there are such things. You do get snow tires, and just to prove it, here are a pair. These are Anlas winter tires. Um, they are described as M&S rated. That's mud and snow, not Marks and Spencer. They're designed, their tread pattern supposedly to cut through snow and mud and find grip in tricky conditions. And they're actually legal requirements in some countries for bikers. For example, in Germany, there's a mandatory €60 fine for riding on a non-approved winter tyre in winter. Um, Now, I've not tried them, so I can't actually comment on how much grip they offer over a sort of standard sport touring tyre, but I can honestly suggest that they probably don't offer a great deal more grip. Yes, they have a slightly more tready pattern, but they're not exactly a pair of knobblies. And frankly, rubber doesn't stick well to ice under any circumstances. It doesn't work in cars particularly well. You need some further assistance. So if you ride habitually in icy conditions, you can fit snow chains or these little items, which are known as snow claws. They're available on a German website. They cost around £70. Now, compare and contrast to that with the price of the Givi Smart Bar for value. I think these are far better value. So if you're heading off on your holiday and you expect to encounter winter conditions, something like that may be useful. I've not used them. Again, I don't know anybody who has. There are eBay offers on these, and you'll sometimes find sort of videos attached to them as well. But it's worth remembering, if you do commit yourself to a winter tour, that there are some countries where there is a simple and straightforward ban on two-wheelers in winter. For example, I believe in Italy, if the roads are actually covered with snow, then motorcycles and scooters are forbidden. Fines range from 85 to €338, apparently. Although quite what happens if you get caught out when the snow falls, I don't know. I've also heard that the Canadian province of Quebec is considering such a ban, although as I don't know specifically about that. I do offer bad weather riding courses, but frankly, somebody said, why aren't there training courses to ride in snow? Well, I'm not about to start offering those, but hey ho, I'm sure somebody will want to do that. My choice on snow, if I can stay out of it, I will. And anyway, that's it for today's show. Apologies for all the multitude of glitches, the late start this morning, or the early start this morning, the curtailed show due to broadband problems, and then me somehow managing to mute the microphone. I hope that wasn't muted for too long. So thanks for those of you who did look in. Just a couple of quick reminders. Don't forget the Xmas gift vouchers are available. I've put that up online, and the next event in the live broadcasts is going to be on filtering. That'll be 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 5th of January, so just after New Year, and I will be looking at filtering. If you've got any questions to ask, then I will have time for questions at the end of my presentation, and I'll be asking, is it an art or a science? Does it need brains or does it need balls? And that's all taken from my perspective as a 16-year courier veteran. So do look in for that show if you possibly can. As I say, tickets are available on the link which I meant to give you, and I think I forgot. Here we go. No, that's the wrong one. Let me try again. Nothing's going well today. Hang on a minute. Get the link up. There it is. It's coming up now. All right, that really is it for another show. So once again, apologies for any inconvenience. Thanks to all those of you who do look in either now or look in at some point during the future. Stay shiny side up out there and enjoy the week.